Struggling waitress entered a billionaire CEO's SUV thinking it was an Uber and won his heart, but what happened next will leave you breathless. She was running late for the most important job interview of her life, a role at one of the most prestigious firms in the city. Flustered and desperate, she waved down what she thought was her Bolt ride and jumped in, apologizing profusely to the driver. But the man in the back seat didn't complain. In fact, he smiled gently and told her to relax, "You're just in time." What she didn't know was, the man beside her wasn't just another passenger. He was the CEO of the very company she was interviewing for. Intrigued by her confidence and hunger, he decided to make small talk, then switched into interviewer mode, asking her tough questions about leadership, decision-making, ethics. She answered them with clarity, passion, and brilliance, completely unaware she was in a moving interview, and sitting beside the owner of the company. By the time they pulled up at the company gates, he was already impressed enough to hire her on the spot. But just as she stepped out of the car and turned to thank him properly, he froze. There she was. The woman he had once loved. The woman who vanished without a word years ago. Heart pounding, he called her name. Before we dive fully into this incredible story, make sure to hit that like button if you believe in second chances, subscribe for more heartwarming tales, and share this with someone who needs to hear that miracles do happen. Drop a comment below and tell us about a time when a mistake led to something beautiful in your life. Maya Chen was a 26-year-old waitress juggling 3 jobs just to keep her tiny apartment, until one frantic morning changed her world forever. She bolted down the busy street, her worn heels clicking against wet pavement as rain began to fall. The interview at Sterling Enterprises was scheduled for 9 sharp, and it was already 8:45. This wasn't just any job interview, this was her shot at escaping the endless cycle of double shifts and unpaid bills that had consumed her life for the past 3 years. Her phone buzzed with a notification from her ride-share app. The black SUV was supposed to be waiting on the corner, and there it was, sleek, expensive-looking, with tinted windows that screamed luxury. Maya didn't have time to question why her budget ride looked so fancy. She yanked open the door and practically threw herself into the back seat, breathless and apologetic. "I'm so sorry I'm late," she gasped, fumbling with her seatbelt. "Traffic was insane, and I couldn't find the pickup spot, Anne." "Breathe," came a deep, calm voice from beside her. Maya froze. She slowly turned to see a man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit, his dark eyes studying her with an expression she couldn't quite read. He was devastatingly handsome in that effortless way that spoke of good genes and better grooming, but there was something familiar about the curve of his jaw, the way his lips quirked slightly upward. "You're just in time," he said gently, and something in his tone made her racing heart slow just a fraction. I think there's been a mistake," Maya stammered, suddenly aware of how out of place she looked in her department store blazer next to this man who probably spent more on his watch than she made in 6 months. "No mistake," he replied, settling back into the leather seat. "Where are you headed?" "Sterling Enterprises," she said, still confused but grateful he wasn't kicking her out. "I have an interview there." Something flickered across his features, surprise, perhaps, or recognition. "Sterling Enterprises," he repeated thoughtfully. "What position?" As the SUV glided through traffic with the kind of smooth precision that only came with a professional driver, Maya found herself relaxing despite the surreal situation. Maybe this was just how rideshares worked in the wealthy part of town. "Junior marketing analyst," she said, straightening her shoulders with pride. "I know it doesn't sound like much, but it's with their innovation team. It could be my chance to finally use my degree for something meaningful." "Tell me about meaningful," he said, and suddenly his casual tone shifted into something more focused, more intense. "What does that word mean to you?" Maya blinked, caught off guard by the directness of the question. But something about his genuine interest made her want to answer honestly. "Meaningful means creating something that matters," she said, her voice growing stronger. "It means using your skills to solve real problems, not just to make rich people richer." I've spent 3 years serving coffee and clearing tables, watching people in suits rush past like I'm invisible. But I have ideas, good ones. I just need someone to give me a chance to prove it. He leaned forward slightly, his attention completely focused on her now. Give me an example. What's one idea you'd implement if you had the resources? Maya's mind raced. This felt less like small talk and more like an interview. But she'd prepared for this moment for weeks. Microlending programs integrated with social media platforms, she said without hesitation. Sterling has the technology and the reach to create a system where small business owners in underserved communities can access capital through peer-to-peer networks. It's profitable, scalable, and actually helps people build better lives. His eyebrows rose slightly. Interesting. How would you handle the risk assessment? For the next 20 minutes, as the SUV navigated through the city's financial district, Maya found herself in the most engaging conversation she'd had in months. This stranger asked probing questions about market analysis, ethical business practices, and leadership philosophy. She answered each one with growing confidence, her initial nervousness replaced by the thrill of intellectual challenge. "What's your biggest weakness?" he asked as they approached a gleaming skyscraper. Maya smiled. "I care too much about the outcome. Sometimes I work myself to exhaustion because I can't stand the thought of letting people down. But I've learned that sustainable excellence requires balance, not burnout." The SUV pulled to a stop in front of Sterling Enterprises' imposing glass facade. Maya gathered her purse and portfolio, suddenly remembering that she still didn't know this man's name. "Thank you," she said, turning to face him properly for the first time since getting in the car. "I don't know who you are, but talking with you helped calm my nerves. I feel ready now." He smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. "You should feel ready. You're exactly what Sterling Enterprises needs." Maya stepped out onto the sidewalk, her confidence soaring. She turned back to thank him properly, to ask his name, maybe even to see if he'd like to grab coffee sometime. But as she looked through the open car door, her world tilted on its axis. Those eyes. That smile. The scar barely visible along his left temple from the motorcycle accident when he was 19. "Alexander," she whispered, her portfolio slipping from suddenly nerveless fingers. Alexander Sterling froze in his seat, his confident composure cracking like ice under sudden heat. The woman standing on the sidewalk, staring at him with wide, disbelieving eyes, was the ghost that had haunted his dreams for 5 long years. "Maya," he breathed, her name falling from his lips like a prayer he'd forgotten how to say. She stumbled backward, her hand flying to her mouth as if she could somehow take back his name, undo this moment, rewind time itself. The portfolio she dropped scattered papers across the wet pavement, but neither of them moved to collect them. "This can't be happening," she whispered, shaking her head. "This can't be real." Alexander stepped out of the SUV, his movements careful and deliberate, as if she might vanish again if he moved too quickly. "Maya, it's me. It's really me." The years had changed them both. She was thinner now, her face carrying a weariness that hadn't been there when they were young and reckless and so desperately in love. But her eyes, those warm brown eyes that had once looked at him like he hung the stars, those were exactly the same. "You're him," she said, her voice barely audible above the city's morning rush. "You're the CEO. Alexander Sterling." "I should have known, I should have realized." "You couldn't have known," he said gently, taking a tentative step closer. "I go by Alex in business now. And you changed your last name." She nodded, tears beginning to spill down her cheeks. "Chen is my mother's maiden name. I thought it would help me disappear." The word disappear hit him like a physical blow. All the old anger, the confusion, the sleepless nights wondering what he'd done wrong came rushing back. "Why?" The question tore from his throat, raw and desperate. "Why did you leave me, Maya? One day we were planning our future, talking about the little house by the lake, and the next morning you were gone. No note, no explanation, nothing. Your phone was disconnected, your apartment empty. I searched for you for months. Maya's composure finally shattered. She pressed her back against the building's glass wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the cold concrete, sobbing into her hands. I didn't want to leave, she choked out between tears. God, Alex, I didn't want to leave you. I loved you so much it felt like dying. He knelt beside her, not caring about his expensive suit or the curious stares of passing pedestrians. Then why? Help me understand. She looked up at him, her face streaked with tears and mascara, and in her eyes he saw a pain that matched his own. Your mother, she whispered. She came to see me the night before I left. Alexander's blood turned to ice. My mother? Maya nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. She knew about us. She'd been having me followed, investigating my background, my family's financial situation. She had photographs, Alex. Pictures of us together, of my apartment, of the restaurant where I worked. She knew everything. What did she say to you? She told me that I was ruining your life, Maya said, her voice growing stronger with each word, as if finally speaking the truth was giving her power. She said that your father was considering removing you from the company succession because of our relationship. That marrying someone from my background would destroy your reputation, your future, everything you'd worked for. Alexander felt sick. Maya, none of that was true. My father never. She had documents, Maya interrupted. Legal papers, board meeting minutes discussing your unsuitable romantic entanglement. She showed me articles from business magazines questioning your judgment. She made it all seem so real, so official. They were fake, he said, his voice hollow with realization. She fabricated everything. I know that now, Maya said quietly. But I was 21, Alex. I was a waitress from the wrong side of town who'd somehow caught the attention of a billionaire's son. When his mother showed up with proof that I was destroying his life, what was I supposed to think? Alexander reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. Her fingers were cold, trembling. She gave me a choice, Maya continued. Leave quietly and never contact you again, or she would make sure I lost my job, my apartment, everything. She said she'd ruin my family's small business, make sure I could never find work anywhere in the city. But if I disappeared, she'd make sure you moved on, found someone appropriate, someone who could actually help your career instead of destroying it. So you sacrificed yourself, he said, understanding flooding through him like a tide. You gave up everything to protect me. I thought I was saving you, she whispered. I thought if I stayed, I'd only drag you down. Your mother made it clear that loving me was selfish, that if I really cared about you, I'd let you go. Alexander closed his eyes, overwhelmed by a mixture of rage at his mother and heartbreak for the woman beside him. I looked for you everywhere. I hired private investigators, I called every chin in 3 states. I never stopped hoping you'd come back. I changed everything, Maya said. My name, my appearance, even moved to a different city for a while. I wanted to make sure you could never find me, because I knew if you did, I wouldn't be strong enough to stay away. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 5 lost years settling between them like a chasm. I never married, Alexander said suddenly. I never even came close. My mother kept introducing me to suitable women, but none of them were you. Maya's breath caught. Alex. I need you to know something, he said, turning to face her fully. That interview in the car. You earned that job on your own merit. Your ideas were brilliant, your passion was evident, and your qualifications speak for themselves. This has nothing to do with our past. She stared at him, searching his face for any sign of deception. You're offering me the job. I'm offering you the position you deserve, he said firmly. The position you would have gotten even if we'd never met before today. But Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. She nodded, wiping the last of her tears away. Do you still love me? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Because I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day in 5 years. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as Alexander's question hung in the air between them. The bustling city seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them sitting on cold concrete, 5 years of separation dissolving in the space of a heartbeat. Yes, she whispered, the word escaping before she could stop it. I never stopped loving you either. I tried to forget, tried to move on, but you were always there in the back of my mind, in every quiet moment, in every dream. Alexander's face transformed with relief and something deeper, hope. He stood and extended his hand to her. Then we're not letting anyone take that away from us again. Maya took his hand, allowing him to pull her to her feet. But Alex, your mother. We'll have to accept it, he said firmly, his jaw set with determination. I'm not the same man I was 5 years ago, Maya. I'm the CEO now, not just the heir apparent. The company is mine, the decisions are mine, and my personal life is definitely mine. As they stood there, hands intertwined, Maya felt a flutter of the old fear. What if she tries to destroy me again? What if? She won't get the chance, Alexander said, his voice carrying an authority that hadn't been there when they were younger. But first, let's get you inside. You still have a job to officially accept. The next hour passed in a blur of introductions, paperwork, and barely contained emotions. Alexander led her through Sterling Enterprises' gleaming halls, introducing her to department heads and team members who would become her colleagues. Maya signed her employment contract with shaking hands, still unable to fully believe this was real. Your office is on the 15th floor, Alexander said as they rode the elevator up together. You'll be working directly with the innovation team, reporting to Sarah Martinez. She's brilliant, you'll love her. Alex, Maya said softly, what happens now? Between us, I mean. He turned to face her, his expression serious. Now we take it slow. We get to know each other again. 5 years is a long time, we're different people now. But Maya, I want you to know that I'm willing to fight for this. For us. The elevator dinged softly as they reached her floor. I want to fight for us too, she said. But I'm scared. So am I, he admitted. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. That evening, Alexander sat in his mother's pristine living room, his hands clenched in his lap as he faced the woman who had shaped so much of his life. And nearly destroyed his chance at happiness. Eleanor Sterling was 62, impeccably dressed, and utterly composed as she poured tea from bone china cups. You seem tense, darling. How was your day? I hired someone new today, Alexander said, his voice carefully controlled. Maya Chen. Perhaps you remember her. The teacup froze halfway to Eleanor's lips. For just a moment, her perfect composure cracked, revealing something that might have been fear. I don't know what you mean, she said, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. Don't lie to me, mother. Alexander's voice was quiet, but there was steel beneath the calm. I know what you did. I know about the fake documents, the threats, the way you drove away the woman I loved. Eleanor set down her teacup with a sharp clink. That girl was completely wrong for you. She would have ruined everything we built. She would have made me happy, Alexander said, standing up. And that's what you couldn't stand, isn't it? The thought that I might choose love over your ambitions for me. Love? Eleanor laughed bitterly. Alexander, you were 23 years old. You thought you were in love with a waitress who saw dollar signs when she looked at you. Maya never asked me for anything, Alexander said, his voice rising. Not money, not gifts, not status. She loved me for who I was, not what I could give her. And you destroyed that because it didn't fit your perfect plan. Eleanor stood as well, her composure finally cracking completely. I did what was necessary to protect you. That girl would have dragged you down, made you ordinary. You're a sterling, Alexander. You have responsibilities. I have the right to choose my own life. Alexander shouted, years of suppressed anger finally erupting. You had no right to manipulate us, to lie to her, to threaten her family. You stole 5 years from us, mother. 5 years we can never get back. And what if I did? Eleanor's mask slipped entirely, revealing the calculating woman beneath. Look at you now. Look at what you've accomplished. You're the CEO of a billion-dollar company. You're respected, powerful, successful. Would you have any of that if you'd married some nobody waitress? Alexander stared at his mother, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time in his life. I would trade every dollar, every bit of power, every ounce of respect for one more day with the woman I love. And the fact that you can't understand that tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. He turned toward the door, then paused. Maya and I are together now. We're going to rebuild what you tried to destroy. And if you ever, try to interfere in our lives again, you'll find out just how much power this CEO actually has. 3 months later, Maya stood on the balcony of Alexander's penthouse apartment, watching the sun set over the city. The job at Sterling Enterprises had exceeded every expectation, her microlending program was already in beta testing, and she'd been promoted to senior analyst. But more than that, she and Alexander had found their way back to each other. They'd taken it slow, dating like teenagers, rediscovering the people they'd become. The love was still there, stronger now for having survived separation and heartbreak. Penny for your thoughts, Alexander said, rappy. Wasn't the wrong car, Alexander murmured against her hair. It was exactly the right car at exactly the right time. Fate just took a little detour. Maya turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had never stopped loving her. Your mother still won't speak to you. Her choice, Alexander said simply. I've made mine. No regrets. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. Only that we lost so much time. But we have the rest of our lives to make up for it. As he kissed her, Maya felt the last of her fears melt away. They had fought for their love and won. Sometimes the greatest victories came not from power or wealth, but from the courage to choose happiness over fear, love over expectation. True love doesn't always follow the path we expect. Sometimes it takes detours through heartbreak and separation, through misunderstandings and manipulation. But when two hearts are truly meant to be together, no obstacle is insurmountable. Maya and Alexander's story reminds us that love worth having is love worth fighting for, and that sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives begin with the courage to trust again, to hope again, to love again despite the scars we carry.